Being outside is good for us. It's that simple. And trails make it easy for us to walk, bike, and be active outside in our own backyards. On the trail, we see people moving, connecting with their communities, making the places where they live great. For 40 years, Rails to Trails Conservancy has led the way, creating trails across the country, making it safer and easier for everyone to get outside. They want you to get involved. Find your trail and start your journey today at railstotrails.org/iHeart and follow at Rails to Trails on social.
Hey listeners, this is Peter and welcome back to the History Shorts. Today's episode is brought to you by the podcast Republic, your ultimate listening app. Discover and subscribe to thousands of podcasts from around the world. Download Podcast Republic today, available on Google Play and the Apple App Store. Today on History Shorts. In May of 1933, approximately 6,000 people were transported by barge to a small island in western Siberia. They had been given no food, no tools, no shelter, and no instructions. The island was uninhabited. It was covered in forest. It was surrounded by cold river water. There were guards on the banks with orders to shoot anyone who tried to leave. Within 3 months, approximately 4,000 of those 6,000 people were dead. They died of starvation, exposure, disease, violence, and in documented cases that Soviet authorities themselves recorded, cannibalism. The island was called Nazino. The survivors called it Cannibal Island. And the Soviet state worked very hard to make sure that nobody ever found out what happened there. Our history brief today returns to Today in Context and why Social Security is running out of time. A quick word from our sponsors.
Summer is here. At Orderly Meds, we know this time is a reminder that life is full of new beginnings. Whether you're celebrating the nice weather, starting a new chapter, planning a vacation, or simply looking ahead to what's next, this season can be the perfect time to invest in yourself and your health. If you've struggled with weight loss and are curious about GLP-1 medications, Orderly Meds can help you learn about your options. Through a simple virtual process, you can connect with licensed medical professionals who can determine whether treatment may be appropriate for you. Getting started is fast, convenient, and happens online from the comfort of home. This summer, consider a new approach to feeling your best. Visit orderlymeds.com/podcast to learn more. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. orderlymeds.com/podcast. Because every new season is an opportunity to take the next step forward. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.
This day in history. On July 11, 1804, Alexander Hamilton was mortally wounded in a duel with Aaron Burr in Weehawken, New Jersey. Hamilton's death deprived the young nation of one of its most influential political thinkers. On July 11, 1979, the abandoned American space station Skylab re-entered Earth's atmosphere, scattering debris across parts of Australia and the Indian Ocean. Story of the day. So let's start by trying to understand what the Soviet Union was doing in the spring of 1933. Stalin forced collectivization of Soviet agriculture. The campaign to eliminate private farming and transfer all agricultural production to state-controlled collective farms had been underway since 1929. It had produced one of the greatest man-made famines in human history. The Ukrainian Holodomor, the deliberate starvation of Ukraine, was killing millions of people at the very moment the events at Nazino were unfolding. Alongside collectivization, Stalin had launched a campaign of systematic elimination of the kulaks, defined as wealthy peasants, though in practice the category was applied to anyone who resisted collectivization and was denounced by neighbors for any reason. Millions of people were arrested, shot, or deported to labor camps in the East. The Gulag, or the Soviet system of forced labor camps, was expanding at enormous speed to absorb all of them. The people sent to Nazino were not, for the most part, kulaks or political prisoners in any meaningful sense. In the spring of 1933, Soviet authorities in Moscow had issued a directive to clear the cities of so called socially harmful elements, a category that encompassed homeless people, petty criminals, and people without internal passports, as well as anyone else who could not document their right to live in an urban center. The sweep was massive and indiscriminate. People were arrested on the streets of Moscow and Leningrad simply for failing to produce papers. They were loaded onto trains with minimal food and water. They were transported east toward western Siberia, where the NKVD had been ordered to establish new special settlements for resettled populations. The settlements did not yet exist. The infrastructure to support them did not exist either. The food supplies to sustain them certainly did not exist as well. And so, in May of 1933, approximately 6,000 people arrived at a staging point on the Ob River and were loaded onto barges and transported to Nazino Island, which was small, uninhabited, and completely unprepared for any human habitation at all. What happened on Nazino in the weeks that followed was documented remarkably by a Communist Party official named Vasily Velichko, who visited the island in the summer of 1933 and wrote a detailed report addressed to party leadership. Velichko was not a dissident. He was not trying to expose the system. He was actually a loyal party official who was genuinely horrified by what he found and believed, apparently sincerely, that what had happened at Nazino represented an excess that party leadership would want to know about and correct. His report described conditions of almost unimaginable horror. People had arrived on the island with no food and no means of obtaining any. The first flour delivery, a small quantity grossly inadequate for 6,000 people, arrived several days after the deportees themselves. People ate the flour raw, mixed with river water, which caused dysentery. The May weather in western Siberia was cold. People had no shelter. They died of exposure at night. They were attacked and killed by criminal elements among the deportees, who were better organized and more violent than the general population, all for whatever food or clothing they possessed. And then, as starvation deepened and death became routine, some of these survivors began eating the dead. Velichko's report documented specific cases. People were killed for their flesh. Guards on the riverbanks watching the island from a distance reported what they were seeing as well. The Soviet state was receiving accounts of mass cannibalism on the island it had created by shipping 6,000 people there and providing them with nothing. Velichko's report reached party leadership. It was read, it was filed, it was classified. Well, and then nothing happened. No one was held accountable for the conditions at Nazino. The island was eventually abandoned. Those who had survived were transferred to other locations in the Siberian labor camp system. The report was sealed in Soviet archives. Nazino was not spoken of. The survivors, scattered through the Gulag system, had no platform and no safety to speak. The perpetrators, the NKVD officials who had organized the deportations and the resettlement that wasn't, faced no consequences. The Soviet state filed the horror away and moved on to the next directive. The world found out about Nazino in 1988. A Soviet journalist named Anatoly Plantikov, working during the Glasnost era of relative openness under Gorbachev, located survivors, elderly men and women who had been children or young adults at Nazino, and recorded their testimonies. Their accounts matched Velichko's report in detail. The report itself was eventually declassified and published. The number of dead at Nazino, approximately 4,000 in 3 months, was confirmed by Soviet administrative records. Nazino was not an accident. It was not a local excess or a failure of implementation. It was the direct consequence of a policy, mass deportation of people defined as undesirable, carried out with complete indifference to whether those people survived the process. The History Brief. If you've followed American politics for any length of time, you've probably heard some version of the same warning. Social Security is running out of money. This statement usually sparks strong reactions. Some people think the program is about to disappear. Others insist there's nothing to worry about. The reality, as always, lies somewhere in between. Social Security isn't on the verge of collapse, but it is facing a problem that has been building for decades. And to understand why, we have to go back to the Great Depression. In 1935, during the presidency of Franklin D. Roosevelt, Congress created Social Security as part of the New Deal. The goal was straightforward: provide a basic safety net for older Americans who could no longer work. The system was designed around a simple idea. Current workers would pay payroll taxes, and that money would be used to support current retirees. In other words, Social Security was never intended to function like a personal retirement account, where your contributions are saved specifically for you. It was a transfer system between generations. And for many decades, it worked remarkably well. Why? Because there were lots of workers and relatively few retirees. In 1950, there were roughly 16 workers supporting every Social Security beneficiary. That ratio created a tremendous financial cushion. But demographics don't stand still. Over time, Americans began living longer. At the same time, birth rates started falling. Then came the retirement of the baby boom generation, the enormous population boom after World War II. Suddenly, millions of people began collecting benefits, while the number of workers supporting the system grew much more slowly. Today, there are fewer than 3 workers per beneficiary, and that ratio is expected to continue shrinking. The result is simple math: more money is going out, and less money is coming in relative to the number of recipients. For years, Social Security accumulated surpluses that were placed into trust funds. Those reserves helped cushion the impact of demographic changes. But now those reserves are gradually being drawn down. According to current projections, the trust fund that supports retirement benefits could be depleted within the next decade. And that sounds alarming, but it's important to understand what it actually means. Social Security would not suddenly disappear. Payroll taxes would continue flowing into the system. The problem is that incoming revenue would no longer be sufficient to pay for scheduled benefits. Without reforms, future retirees could face automatic benefit reductions. So, why hasn't Congress fixed the problem? Well, because every solution is politically difficult. Raise payroll taxes? Workers object. Reduce benefits? Retirees object. Increase the retirement age? Future retirees object. Virtually every proposal creates winners and losers, and politicians tend to avoid problems that require difficult trade offs. Economists and policymakers have been discussing the issue for decades. The challenge isn't identifying the problem. The challenge is finding a solution that enough people can agree on. And that's what makes Social Security such a perfect example of history shaping the present. The system was created during a time when Americans lived shorter lives, had larger families, and experienced a very different economy. Its success helped millions of people avoid poverty in old age. But the country that Social Security was built for is not the country we live in today. People are living longer, families are smaller, and the population is aging. So the question isn't whether Social Security matters. It absolutely does. The question is whether America can adapt one of its most successful programs to the realities of the 21st century. Because the clock isn't running out on Social Security itself, it's running out on the opportunity to fix it gradually rather than suddenly. Thank you so much for spending some time with me today and helping make this little show such a mighty success. If you're enjoying this show and would like to help with its production, you can always donate a few dollars at buymeacoffee.com or become a Patreon member to enjoy these episodes ad-free. Both of those links can be found on our website at www.historyshortspodcast.com. And don't forget to check out our YouTube channel where we have different videos and series that are not part of this main feed. Have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you all again tomorrow.
Summer is here. At Orderly Meds, we know this time is a reminder that life is full of new beginnings. Whether you're celebrating the nice weather, starting a new chapter, planning a vacation, or simply looking ahead to what's next, this season can be the perfect time to invest in yourself and your health. If you've struggled with weight loss and are curious about GLP-1 medications, Orderly Meds can help you learn about your options. Through a simple virtual process, you can connect with licensed medical professionals who can determine whether treatment may be appropriate for you. Getting started is fast, convenient, and happens online from the comfort of home. This summer, consider a new approach to feeling your best. Visit orderlymeds.com/podcast to learn more. That's orderlymeds.com/podcast. orderlymeds.com/podcast. Because every new season is an opportunity to take the next step forward. Compounded medications are not FDA approved. Eligibility required and determined by a licensed provider. Individual results may vary. See website for details.